Welcome back, Celebration Pros. I'm so excited to have Kevin Dennis on the podcast today. Kevin and I met mutually through OFD Consulting, which, as you all know that have been listening, is the PR company that I've been working with. And I'm so excited to have him here. He's a fellow podcaster and wedding pro. And Kevin, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's just kick it off and let's get to know you a little bit better. Can you tell our listeners who you are, what you do, all the things?
Sure. So my name's Kevin Dennis. I'm from Fantasy Sound Event Services and Wedding IQ. I started Fantasy Sound Event Services back in 1989. So I'm old, is what I always like to tell people. No, and I started out as a DJ, like many people in the industry do, and then they divert into other things. So as my business grew, we kind of, well, backtrack just a tiny bit. So we are 45 minutes kind of east of San Francisco. And so being 45 minutes east of San Francisco means all the big vendors in the city do not want to come our way or, come out to Livermore wine country to do events. They would prefer not to. They charge high prices. So what ended up happening is our company started filling a void here in my neck of the woods. So a few of the venues that I had really great relationships with kept telling me, "Hey, can you, look into this or look into that?" And one of them called me the record spinner because that's how old I am. I've been, started DJing with records. Is that she, record spin, and she still calls me record spinner to this day. But she, hey, can you figure out how to do this and how to do that? So next thing you know, we're doing audiovisual rentals for corporate events. We started doing drapery, chandeliers, lighting for weddings, and that's where we really Fantasy Sound Event Services really lives right now. And then for the Wedding IQ side, is I was heavily involved with WIPA for many, many years, International Professional Association. I was international president twice. And just Wedding IQ kind of fills my void of giving back to the industry. So so that's where we are. We're just there to help support, educate, and WIPA was all about education, and I feel like there's not enough education for us in our industry. So the more we can learn, the better we're going to be for our clients.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. I resonate with that so much because being in the Florida Keys over here on the other side, it's so small town here. We're kind of like our own country, but we're not. And there's so
that's
little opportunity
and
for
that's kind of how we are,
growth.
even though we're in the Bay Area. We're our
Mhm.
own little country over on this weird little tri-valley. Although people are, our wine country is really growing. We have over 65 wineries now in Livermore, and so people are starting to take notice of us a little bit more, some of those bigger
Yeah.
vendors. Yeah, because they're seeing that there's a lot going on here. But I can relate to what you're saying, kind of out in the middle of nowhere.
Well, and I love that even early on you saw that there was a gap in the industry and you filled it. And in doing so, it sounds like you've done so much great work in your area since then.
We
So
tried. It's a lot of work.
I don't know if you have the like filter on. So for those that are listening, we're also over on YouTube. But if he has the filter on, he has no wrinkles for how old he says he is.
Oh, I'm old. Thank you.
I
That's
love
very
it.
nice.
I love it. Well, being in the industry for some time now, I know that you've seen a lot of changes. You've discussed a little bit of that with us, but in the way that it's all evolved, how has your business changed structurally and what does that look like now?
Well, I started out with no employees and now I have a bunch of employees, which is, as we all know, that's, a blessing and a curse, I think, is the best way to talk about employees. Even like last year I had my very first workman's comp claim. I've been in business 30 years, never had one
Oh,
before.
wow.
So went through, navigated that, and had a Cal OSHA claim and all kinds of interesting things. But just as we grow, we started out really small. It was just me, and now we swell up to almost 20 employees when we get really, really busy, and things get going. So that's kind of like, the difference now. I would say I started out, I don't know why I was having this conversation over the weekend. We were out to dinner for my wife's birthday with her friends, and that we're talking about typewriters. And I was like, oh, I actually have my very first typewriter. When I started my business, I was typing contracts because there wasn't really a computer out. So like technology, which we're here to talk about today,
Yeah.
has drastically changed what we do and how fast. I mean, even like, we used to mail out contracts and wait for a check to come back, and it would
Mm-hmm.
take anywhere from 14 to 21 days, and now we email contracts, send an invoice link, and things are done usually within the day. Like things are, so that instant gratification world that we live in is, it's a little different. So that's kind of, I think, how we changed over time. I would say,
Mm-hmm.
looking back, we used to, even now with like meetings, like we're doing, like how we are now right now over Zoom, is like, I can do so many more meetings over Zoom than I can in person. And then you also don't have to dress up, as much. I can wear I love to wear my shorts. So anyway.
I'm in workout clothes. This is just
Yeah.
on over this. So
Yeah. And I'm in shorts because
if we're being
you
honest.
yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And so I'm interested in asking you a couple questions about your team. So you've gone from, were you solo at the very beginning, or did you have
Yeah.
someone working with you?
No, just me. I would
So you,
like have a friend that would come help me,
yeah.
like kind of, it was more like, here, I'll give you $20, $25. I mean, back then that was a lot of money, to just come help me for the night, move equipment or something. But I never really had really formal employees until like the mid 90s. So
And then what did that look like? Did you first hire someone to help you like on the admin side, or was it more like crew work for
it was
setup and
more
things like
crew
that?
work. Yeah, no, it was more crew work when I first started. And then I realized, oh, I can't do all the admin myself. And I'm actually going to make more money if somebody's returning, answering the phone, versus, not answering the phone and going to voicemail, and, just all that kind of stuff. There was a point about, I would say, probably about 7, 8 years into my business, where I realized I can't do it all.
Yeah.
And I think that's the point. I think where a lot of wedding planners fail is they try to do it all. And
Mm-hmm.
like right now we have two virtual assistants that work for us. I'm also a client of OFD Consulting. My older sister Megan Ely is, it's a big joke, but anyway, tell your listeners she's my older sister. So my older sister Megan, we use her company. So I've learned to outsource. You know what I'm saying? You got to learn to. We're not good at everything, even
Mm-hmm.
though we think we are. And I think the other stigmatism in the wedding is, people want to, whether you're a photographer, florist, baker, whatever you are, people are hiring you because you're an expert in that field. And I
Mm-hmm.
think where a lot of wedding businesses make a mistake is like, oh, I'm going to do my own website. Oh, I'm going to do my own social media. Oh, I'm going to do my own. I'm going to do my own. And that's where I think a lot of companies miss the boat and don't have that opportunity for growth, because you're not good at everything. You may be good, some people are maybe good at social media, make it handle that part of it, but still is, you got to learn to outsource when possible, and do it through like VAs. You don't have to bring in
Yeah.
employees, because virtual, like I says, I have employees, but I also have, if you think about it, three, I have OFD, but then I have two virtual assistants that work for us.
Mm-hmm.
So.
No, and I think you're spot on with, it's that breaking point of I can't do this all myself, and that's when a lot of people bow out, or
Mm-hmm.
they recognize that they need to grow. And I think that's what's so important about education in this industry is no one's really taught. I would say the majority of us don't have like a business degree. Nobody's really taught about what a business is structured like. We're creatives. We like to do this thing. We're going to make it a business. We've got our LLC. It's official. And
Yeah.
the actual structural part, or the timeline of what a business can look like, is never actually discussed. So I think that's really important to touch on.
Well, and even think about, like, you can't go to every association meeting. You can't,
Right.
and I always say you're out of sight, out of mind, and I just recently realized that through COVID, that I stopped kind of going to all the association meetings around us. And I was more focused on WIPA on the national side. But then I'm like, wait, my business is here in the Bay Area, and people are forgetting that we're here. So then I just recently rejoined my ILEA chapter and got on the board and got involved, and making new connections, because it's, once again, out of sight, out of mind, but you can't do, like, maybe not where you are, but like, people in New York or LA, the bigger cities, there's some kind of an event or networking opportunity probably 2 to 3 nights a week. There's
Mm-hmm.
always somebody having some type of opening, something, and it's like, it's a full-time job to do some of this stuff. So, just kind of picking and choosing and trying to be out there, and just hiring a staff member that maybe might go to those events for you, and
Mm-hmm.
just trying to branch out and figure out, kind of what works under your family structure and all that kind of stuff. It will go a long way. So
Yeah, absolutely. I have a networking event tonight. I had one yesterday, but it was canceled because we had the storm come through.
yeah,
And even though this will air later on, Hurricane Idalia just
yeah,
skirted Florida, and it's hitting up north right now. But so that was canceled, and then I have one tonight and one tomorrow, and I'm
yeah,
like, holy moly, there's a lot going on this week. So, and then for us, and probably similar for you, a lot of times we're not actually in the city that it's taking place, right? So I have to, just a drive hour and a half, 2 hours to get to some of these meetings. And it does take up a huge chunk of your time. And so just making sure that you have that harmony and balance within everything else that's going on is so important.
yeah. And like, I have 3 kids and a wife, and juggling
Yeah.
family life and all that, it gets really difficult. I'm a very big believer. I try not to miss soccer games or miss things for the kids, but I also got to run a business, so that it's
Yeah.
a big juggle. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask you because I know that you are a pro in structuring business in a way that's streamlined. So how much of your business do you think is automated? And then what do you think would is what do you think is best served personally?
I still think you got to have, where people have the generic emails where they just hit a button and or copy paste responses, that kind of stuff. I
Mhm.
kind of feel like you got to stop doing that, and it's hard. And I feel like some of our clients will have sick, you'll look at the thread and there's like 40, 60 emails back and forth, because you'll get the clients that are they email like they text, so then that gets difficult. And you're
Yeah.
like, hey, couple, I wish you would just take all your emails and make it one, like, and then and then I can respond with one big email. But it's like dealing with, like, and then they want information instantaneously, so that is it. I still think you have to have that personal touch when it comes to the customers as much as possible. I believe you automate on the, hey, remind me when it's time, like, we drop in for our clients and it's like, here's everything we need to do, and the machine's telling us when it's time to follow up or what to do, and that kind of stuff. I
Hmm.
think you need to
Like due
automate.
dates and payments and things like that.
Yeah, yeah, all that kind of stuff you need to automate. The other thing I'm a big believer in that you need to automate is your calendar. It's gone are the days where someone comes back at you and says, hey, I would like to have a meeting with you on Thursday at 6 o'clock. Well, I'm not available. How about this day? And you go back and forth. It's so much easier for your clients and for you to send them a link to your calendar and let them book,
Hmm.
when you're available, let them book time. Because I can't tell you, that's probably 5 to 15 emails you're going to take out of your work day. And that's a lot of time, because I think people forget time is money, so the more time you
Hmm.
can focus on it. But I think your calendar is a must. You must be able to automate that kind of stuff and make your life
Yeah,
easy.
it's been a game changer for me. I think a lot of us use Calendly. Do you use a different app?
I use Acuity. A
Okay.
lot of people. One thing we are going to talk about today is the apps. I think
Yep.
tech is very personal, and you need to find, like, so for what we're saying, automate your calendar. Find the one that works for you. And I recommend a lot of these a lot of these companies will have a 15-day, 30-day trial. Try it out real quick. See if you like it, and if you do, move forward with it. And if it's not
Hmm.
working, I'm a big believer you need to evaluate your tech every 3 to 6 months, and, have it in there. All right,
Okay.
look at our tech, what is working, what is not, and make sure you unsubscribe or stop payments, because that's also a little trick. They get you on that, credit card where you put it in, and every year, boom, they're dinging your credit card, or every month they're dinging your credit card. But if that technology is not working for you, make sure you're stopping it. And that's why I think, we're so busy, especially when we get in the, everybody's wedding season is different across the country. So whenever your wedding season is, I always call it the heat of the battle. You're in the middle of the war, and you're fighting all these couples and making sure you get all their weddings right. But at that time is not, it's not a good time to evaluate your tech and make sure you unsubscribe from things, and things are just going to get dinged on that credit card and you don't know it. So take some time
Yeah.
out, block time off in your calendar to evaluate, your business. And one of the things you should be looking at is your tech and what's working and what's not.
I think that is such a valuable tip, because, and this is something that I say all the time, it's information that was given to me from my personal coach, is every hour that you spend planning saves you 10 to 12 hours during the week. But on this level of payments, probably every hour you spend analyzing your financials would probably save you quite a bit of money down the line, right? So
Oh, big time.
a similar rule applies. And just, this is your reminder to all of you listening, and write this down to actually plan a day where you can go in and check this out. And the majority of us listening in that are of the Celebration Pro community, and Kevin, your listeners are obviously on the other side of the country. The people here in Florida, it's slow right now until after Labor Day.
Yeah.
Or
And see,
until end of September, really.
yeah.
So it's time. Right now is the time.
Well, yeah, and it's funny because that's why I said everybody assumes everybody's wedding season is the same across the country,
Yeah.
but it's so different. Like we keep pretty busy through June. July like slows down just a little bit because we lose some of that weekday business and whatnot. But then August, it's still hot, but people are starting to heat back up, and then boom, September hits, and we're busy again all the way through the end of the year. And it's just kind of that weird cycle. But I mean, we have in California now, based in the venues we have here, we have weddings year round. Like I don't go without a wedding. It's very rare that we go without a wedding, at least one wedding a weekend, at least one.
Yeah.
And then when we're really busy, we're doing 18 to 20 weddings a weekend. It really, but it's like we have one wedding right now, or one weekend in January that has no weddings on it. And I'm like, that'll be like the first since COVID that we've had like no wedding.
You'll have like 6 call in 1 week.
Yeah. Well,
fill
and that's the other thing we're learning is a lot of stuff is last minute. Like literally, we just booked a wedding for Friday, literally 10 days ago.
Mhm.
And a decent sized lighting job for us. And it just like I'm like, why are they? And couples, and we're finding that out all of a sudden in the last like 3 to 6 months, things are like last minute. So you're right, it might fill up. So you never know.
I'll cross my fingers for you.
Yeah.
I'm sure it
Yeah.
will. I'm sure it will.
Got to keep the streak alive.
I know. We always, at the beginning of the year, we're like, okay, what are the hot dates going to be? And then it's always like an off the wall date that like everybody wants to get married on. I'm just like, okay, however it goes, it goes.
Well, that's sometimes too is like we'll have, a handful of weddings on a weekend, and then the following weekend we have like the 18 to 20 something. And I'm like, why couldn't a few people, like why couldn't we spread it out? And like it's like, but life doesn't work that way. So we have to take the business when the business comes is what that's kind of something I'm a big believer in. So
it's as predictable as the weather sometimes.
and you have the worst of the weather.
Oh my gosh. Here it's like it's always like, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like creeping in on us. Like it's out there and we're just like, it's a waiting game. So many times it's a waiting game, and it's so hard for vendors and couples to navigate because
I can only imagine.
What do you tell them to move forward, to get a tent, to do, do we look for another venue? Do we try and get everybody to fly in because we're in a destination? There's so many different factors, and it's always just like out there teasing us. So
No, it's almost like you guys are constantly dealing with what we deal with COVID. It's,
Mhm.
like postpone, not postpone, what do I do, kind of stuff. And I guess it's a little bit of a risk your clients have to take. But I mean, people, think about like people like around where our neck of the woods is Yosemite is really popular. And
Yeah.
a lot of people want to get married in the winter there because of the snow. But if they get a bad storm or,
Hmm.
navigating all that kind of stuff, weather is unpredictable and it's getting worse.
Yeah.
I keep
And I
saying,
hear
well,
all the time, you guys must get hit with hurricanes. How do you handle that with weddings? But like you're saying, it's all over the country. Everyone has a different wedding season. Everybody has different weather seasons. I mean,
mhm. Yeah, Southern California. In California, we just got hit with our first hurricane. It ended up being like a storm, but but they
yeah.
were freaking out that, it came up from Mexico and went into San Diego and towards Palm Springs and,
Hmm.
really kind of did in California and ruined a whole weekend's worth of weddings, if you think about it.
Oh
So,
yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
yeah. Yeah.
And speaking of apps, I've been on my weather app like all day.
Yeah, no, and yeah, and you have to because you
Yeah.
got to know what's going on.
Yeah,
No, I agree.
absolutely. And on that note, I'm curious what if you have like a top two or three apps that you've really maybe they're like your go-to every day or the ones that have really helped you move forward in your business that you can recommend to our listeners.
So since I have a lot of employees, I'm a big believer you have to have some kind of a password management app.
Yes.
Because I use one password. And what the nice thing is like we just onboarded a new admin person here. We created her a login. We don't even know what her login is. We don't even care because on the backside, we can hit a button and delete her whenever she decides to leave us. But she has access to use our passwords, but she can't figure out what the passwords are, if that makes any sense.
Okay.
So she
Yeah.
can, get in and order stuff on Amazon or do whatever, she has access to all those kind of things. But then I can go change the password and I don't need to say, hey, we have a new password for this now. It's like, and I do that from time to time. I'll go in and reevaluate. I'm like, oh, I haven't changed that password in a while. And I change it, but I don't have to write it down anywhere because it's all in one password and one password, will it'll update and remember for me. So, and
Yeah.
it's really important, I think, when you have staff, because you can't, they shouldn't have passwords to everything you do because if one employee leaves, just you get a disgruntled employee, next thing you know, your business is shut down. So you got to have
Hmm.
something along those lines. So I recommend that. Another app that I love is called Grammarly. Um,
Hmm.
I don't know if so now Grammarly works everywhere. And I'm a big Mac user. Like I joke that I would wear my Mac laptop on my belt if I could. But Grammarly is an app that I have it on working on my mail app. I have it working in Safari. I have it working on my phone. Because Grammarly you used to have to take the text that you were gonna, the text, put it in their app,
Hmm.
and then it'll update it, boom, then you put it back in. And I can't tell you the last time I've done that with Grammarly because I have it working on all my devices everywhere, and it's the greatest thing because it's like,
Yeah, it just kind of acts as like a spell check as you go, and
well, and even
it
like
applies to everything.
commas, yeah, and
Hmm.
commas, and if you're like doing a run-on sentence, it'll fix all that kind of. It makes you sound a whole lot smarter than you probably are because, I joke that I'm a creative. I'm not English is not my first language, which it really is, but that's my joke because I growing up in school, I was really good at math and all the other subjects, but for some reason with English, I struggled, and so Grammarly helps me in that department. And I'm like, I don't sound like an idiot anymore when I send an email. So, I mean, that's another one. And then we mentioned it earlier, like Acuity, you have to have some kind of
Hmm.
calendar app, um, you know, and then, I mean, I could go on forever about apps, but I mean, the other one, you have to, I mean, I think a lot of businesses where they miss the boat, you need some kind of CRM, something
Yes.
that manages your client, information, will tell you when to, follow up, automate, and you'll get a lot of automation out of a lot of CRMs, and then I use a software called Flex Rental Solutions, and because we do, all our stuff is really considered rental, so
Hmm.
we need to know how many chandeliers we have available on July 19th of next year, and we need to so we used to keep all this stuff like on an Excel spreadsheet, which was blows my mind. Now I can look in the computer and tell you exactly how many I have on orders right now that are not booked, and how many are actually rented, and that's a huge time saver, in that kind of stuff. So and there's some very basic CRMs out there for small companies that you can get to really robust, things like Salesforce and that kind of crazy stuff
Right,
up.
right.
Yeah. But I've heard a lot of I do not use this, but I heard a lot of people are using HubSpot right now in our wedding industry. That's a word.
Hmm.
I mean, I'm hearing
Yep,
HubSpot.
that one's getting more popular. We
Yeah.
used Honeybook when I was a planner, but we definitely
Yeah.
didn't use all of its potential. And it was something that you had said was you using like Excel sheets, which I still use Excel sheets for certain things. And it makes it, the thought comes up a lot of what were we doing before, like
I
all of
know.
this? Like, how are
I
we
know.
managing? I don't know.
I still blows my mind how I ran my business, like 10, 15 years ago, because we've only really had this inventory software. We've been with them for almost 9, maybe almost 10 years now, somewhere in that time
Yeah.
frame. Because I have one of my employees has been with me almost 12 years now, and she was with me before we had Flex Rental
Hmm.
Solutions. So she's like, we just had that conversation the other day at lunch. We go to lunch once a week for like a meeting, and we were like, what did we do before? Like, and we were like trying to remember how we did it, and we don't know how we did it, but we did it. So
Yeah.
that's
It
something.
all gets done somehow.
Yeah. Another one, I'll give you one more app. I'm sure I'm
Yeah.
going over my time on app, but if you have employees, you need some kind of app to manage them and
Hmm.
so I use When I Work. So to schedule them, they can go in, they clock in and clock out through the app. When I used to have a manual little ching ching machine when you would clock in and clock
Yeah.
out. And gone are the days of those, because and to do payroll was like half a day affair, and it was happy. I had to do it every other week, and now I just run a report on When I Work, confirm everything is correct, boom, and submit it up to our payroll processor, and it's done. And it's a matter of 20 minutes instead of half a day's worth of work, calculating everyone's time and making sure you have it right, and all that stuff. And the other thing too is I used to, because I was lazy when I was doing it, I would round up to the, quarter hour, every quarter hour,
Hmm.
half hour, whatever. And now this gives me When I Work, it's, they worked 21.4 hours, and, so they get paid for
Hmm.
21.4 hours, so it also, I'm saving a little money on payroll as well, because
Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah, they're getting paid for what they exactly do. So I,
So through our conversation, we've really gotten to experience from when you started to where you are now. So you started as solo, you built everything, you saw different gaps in the industry, you filled those, you expanded your business, you created new product items to serve, and then you started bringing people on the team. Now it sounds like you even have some admin help too. So my question to you is, now as the CEO of a structured company that has resources and apps and people in place, what are some of the things that you do as the CEO of your company rather than the person who wears all the hats?
Um, well, I'll be honest with you. If I look back before COVID, I was doing more of the sales, marketing for the
Yeah.
company. I still would work events, but I wasn't out, every day doing events, kind of thing. I was doing more of the managing type of it. Post COVID, I'm getting dirty. I'm still like we still don't have enough staff to do what we need to do. So I'm out in the field. I'm still the person that used to do all we call pull sheets. So for every event gets a pull sheet to make sure we have
Yep.
all the equipment out. I'm the one doing that now, like, so like my whole focus post COVID has changed. And so now it's like trying to get people trained, get them on board, and where people can start taking off some of that stuff. So where I can focus on building the business and growing
Mhm.
the business, which I feel like COVID hasn't been good to all of us in the wedding industry as far as building and growing goes.
Right,
I mean,
right.
we've been able to do it, but not in the way that we were doing it pre-COVID.
Mhm.
Like, yeah, I mean, I would go to a lot of the networking meetings. I was all over. I would have lunch dates and coffee dates with people, and constantly out trying to drum up and do business, and all that is gone. So it's kind of like I my whole goal is to get back to where I was pre-COVID. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, and there's a whole new COVID changed so much for everybody.
mhm.
So many, it just the way that we do business. I mean, the way that people expect you to do business and expect you to show up, and you could go on and on with that. So I think it makes sense that afterwards you kind of have to get back in the field, see what's happening, so that you can rebuild appropriately for what's in front of you now.
Well,
So,
yeah, and then and it's just trying to build the staff back up, and like we
mhm,
used to do a ton. I called it our bread and butter money, but it was a lot of corporate work during the week, and so a
mhm,
lot of that work is just gone. Like we were in-house AV for one of the wineries, and we would do anywhere from 3 to 8 events a week for them. I mean, granted, they weren't like big dollar events, but when you get that check at the end of the month, it helped pay the rent, and
right.
it was
Something
it
consistent.
and kept the employees going, and during the week and all that kind of stuff, because that's the other hard part is like we have a small amount of weddings this weekend, but we have a large amount of weddings next week, and so balancing keeping everyone busy and
Mhm,
engaged enough to where they want to still work for you, and it's a struggle. So I'm
mhm.
hoping next year will be better. From what I hear, will be things are going to get back to a little bit more consistent, because I feel like like we had that big mad rush, and last year was the most weddings of what, since 84 or something, 2.5 million
You're right.
weddings in the US or some crazy. And then this year everyone's like, I'm slow, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, well,
Yeah,
you
it's
just,
just been like roller coaster for the last few
yeah.
years.
So trying to use a little bit of that downtime to, grow your business, or, look at
Mhm.
new avenues, and, evaluate all your processes, so when you're slow, I'm like, well, what are you doing to grow on your, work on your business? Oh,
Yes.
enough. Yeah. And then nothing comes out of their mouth. So yeah,
I'm just waiting for the next lead to find me.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So
No, that
anyway.
and I think that's such a smart strategy, especially right
Mhm.
now to be planning. We're getting to fourth quarter here, so we need to know what our year looks like for 2024.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
yeah, and it's just I really want to get back to getting some of that weekday business back for us.
Yeah.
We do
Yeah.
have some weekday weddings, so that's the other weird thing in California now. Thursday weddings are becoming the norm.
Nice.
Yeah, and then we'll have a few Mondays here and there. We've actually had a wedding every day of the week so far this year. At least we've had a Tuesday wedding, Wednesday wedding. Obviously all the other days, and
Oh,
I
that could
always
be a
feel like,
fun challenge.
yeah,
Have
yeah,
one, yeah, for the
yeah.
year. There's your
Bingo.
challenge.
Play bingo. So
2024, play bingo with the week. I like
yeah,
it.
no, and it's just random, but it was like it was by about June, we had every day of the week we had at least a wedding on this in 2023.
Yeah.
But it's that weird, and it's hard then with staff too, because it's like breaking, you got to give people time off,
Yeah.
and it's a whole thing. So we'll
Well,
figure
Kevin,
it out.
this was really fun. We talked about so many different things, and I think it's so enlightening to hear the different stories from the experts that are out there in our field, and to be able to gain the knowledge in the way that you've been able to be successful, and also that you have your own struggles too. You're going through the same seasons that everybody else is, even if the season is a different month for you.
Yeah.
So I do have some fast Q&A here at the
All right.
end, if
You
you're
got to go.
ready.
I'm ready.
All right. Well, what is the last thing that you bought for your business?
A dance floor, believe it or not. It's the last thing I
Ah,
bought. So we got tired of waiting for the rental companies because they were always in our way of putting up our chandeliers or taking down our chandeliers. So
Yeah.
we went into the dance floor rental business, and I just bought a really fancy one because we bought one last year, and it's good, but it's not like this one is the price of a used car. So
Oh
it's
wow.
yeah.
What
So
is it wooden? Is it white? Is it
it's white. We went with white because
yeah,
it's more
classy.
well, it's just we're in the wedding industry, and that's what wedding clients, if they're going to get
Mhm.
it, that's what they want. So
Well, I think
we
it
want to
looks
add on
nice.
some other,
They
yeah.
have a gobo or something. It
Oh, if
also
everything, yeah, everything pops off the white dance floor.
yeah,
So
love it.
yeah.
Great purchase. And then in 1 year, hopefully we get to see each other before that, but if in 1 year we're sitting across the table from each other, celebrating something in your life or in your business and popping a bottle, what would we be celebrating?
I would say I'm celebrating that I'm back to working, like the post COVID stuff. Like I'm back to running my business, not working for my business, if that makes sense.
Right.
Like I'm back to managing my business again. So that would be a win for me because I'm spending a lot of time working as an employee for my business, which I would rather be managing my business. So
I
that
think
would
they
be my
say, like, are
that'd be
you
my
working in
celebration.
your business or on your business? But I don't
Yeah.
remember which one is which. So
Yeah.
I get the
Well, it's
gist.
like the in is if you're just doing the day-to-day stuff, and the on is
Right.
if you're planning ahead and forecasting and doing all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
that's
Bird's eye
that's
view.
that's the goal. I'd love to get there. So
Great. Well, where can our listeners find you? And if you have anything coming up next or anywhere you want to point them to, feel free to share.
sure. You can find me at weddingiq.com or fantasysound.com, and it just simply put my name, Kevin at fantasysound.com, or Kevin at weddingiq.com, and you can find me through email. We're social, Instagram and Facebook, we're out there as well. And then I'm not to take away from you, but I one of my little pet projects has always been I wanted to be a podcast host, and so
Yeah.
we're about to launch Mind Your Wedding Business. It's a B2B wedding podcast. It'll be out here literally probably in the next 2 weeks. So probably by the time this one airs,
Yeah.
it'll be ready.
Nice.
It will be ready to go. And so you're gonna have to come be a guest on my podcast, and
I would
then
love to.
I've also crazy. I'm not just starting one podcast. I'm starting two podcasts. And so
Ah.
the other one, I know I'm a little overachiever. So it's the other one is called Now That I'm Engaged, How Do I Get Married? So it's a B2C podcast, more talking to the brides, to the couples, helping them through the process and things like that. So it's been, we used to do an event here in the Tri Valley called Now That I'm Engaged, How Do I Get Married? And we would have like wedding experts. Actually, it was about an hour and a half long event, but we'd have a photographer stand on stage. And when you're hiring a wedding photographer, this is some of the things to look for. Cater, like all
Mm-hmm.
the different disciplines would be there, but then we would all strategically have little booths set up so they could talk to us after the presentation, and
Yeah.
we were very successful with it. And then we all got too busy, and it just kind of went away. And that type of marketing, the clients didn't, like it wasn't like that. It was like almost like a bridal fair, but not a bridal fair, and like I feel like
Right.
bridal fairs are just kind of a thing of the past. So so that's why I started it, because it'll be the podcast for Fantasy Sound, and Wedding IQ is Mind Your Wedding Business. So I'm
I
having
love
fun.
it.
I've recorded a bunch of episodes. That's why we're getting really close to launching. I have to do a solo episode, which I'm having a hard time with. Is my podcast producer is really making me. She goes, you got to do something to So and that's what I'm struggling with. So as soon as I get my 2 solo episodes, I like to talk to people, not to myself. So as soon as I get those done, we'll be
I
launching.
I had that habit, and there's a string of episodes that I have where it's all interviews, and I realized I'm like they really need to hear from me too, right? Like
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
that I'm the one that they know personally most of the
yeah.
time. So I started cutting it up a little bit
And
with a
doing
few
some
words
solo
from me here
episodes.
and there. Yeah,
Oh,
they're
good for
definitely
you.
shorter.
Yeah. No, I just I have a whole outline, and I just need to go, and I just need to cut loose. And the best part, Carrie told me, she was like, I can I'll edit it. So if you mess up, just stop and go. And
Yeah,
so I don't know. There's something natural about having a conversation, like we're having right now. So, and where you're just talking to yourself. So
Yeah,
anyway,
I agree. You're going to do great though. We can't,
well,
I'll make sure in the show notes, you'll have all the links to all the things, and I'll
I
make sure
appreciate
that
it.
this one goes out right after you launch. So that
Oh,
way
perfect.
we can kind of help push some of our audience over your way. We're so excited for you.
Perfect.
It's going to be fun.
No, I'm excited for it too, especially the B2B one. I don't know why I'm really excited for that, because then it's because I could talk to like all my local people, and or someone that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have, they're not on the B2B side, like they have a voice, and that's what
Yeah, yeah.
I feel like it'll be fun to talk to. So
Awesome. Well, Kevin, thank you
okay.
so much for this. And again, everything, all the links are in the show notes. So listeners, if you've got your ear pods in, if you're running, if you're driving, just save the page. And when you get to where you're going, stop, check out what Kevin has going on, and we'll be seeing you next time.
Thank you so much for having me.